Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be doing a competitive review and deep dive of the Krieg Command Squad. Now, officers and command squads are the backbone of any Imperial Guard army, especially competitive ones. Combine this with the fact that the Death Corps of Krieg are one of the most popular regiments with new players and veterans alike, and the goal of this episode is going to be understanding just what the Krieg Command Squad can bring to the table, how they stack up against other command squads, and are they worth it as a competitive choice. And so with all of that said, without further ado, let's fix bayonets and charge right into this thing.
Attention guardsmen, the Commissariat has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
As is tradition, let us begin with the stat line of the Krieg Command Squad. The Lord Commissar leading the unit has got movement 6, toughness 3, a 5-up save, 3 wounds, leadership 6, and 1 OC. Each veteran guardsman has got movement 6, toughness 3, 5-up save, 1 wound, leadership 7, and 1 OC. In total, there is 1 Lord Commissar and 5 veteran guardsmen, meaning that the unit has 8 wounds overall. This makes it slightly more resilient than the Cadian and Cadian command squads, who have 1 less guardsman in their units and so only have a total of 7 wounds. It's also important to note that because the unit is led by a Lord Commissar, it does get leadership 6 plus base. This leadership will also apply to any Death Corps Krieg units that the Krieg Command Squad joins, and that is actually a significant buff, because essentially it allows you to get half of the duty and honor order on the unit that you lead for free. However, these bonuses aren't that big of a deal. Firstly, having 1 extra wound is a marginal benefit, but in the grand scheme of things, it's rarely going to make the squad feel any more durable. Everyone in this squad is toughness 3, 5-up save. The squads that they're going to be leading, the Big Death Corps of Krieg blobs or part of a Supreme Command blob, are all also going to be toughness 3, 5-up save. Their guardsmen, they're going to die. 1 extra wound isn't really going to change that. So consider it a nice to have rather than something that's going to absolutely determine whether you definitely take Krieg squads over everyone else. On top of this, the extra leadership buff is again nice, but it is kind of irrelevant for 2 reasons. Firstly, Battle Shock itself is very low impact in the game of Warhammer 40k, to the point where people are now saying you might as well just get rid of morale in general, which is crazy, but that's how low impact it is. So the extra leadership really is just a, that's kind of cool, rather than anything else. Combine this with the Grim Determination ability, and we'll get to that in more detail later on, and this leadership 6+ really is a very niche benefit. Off the top of my head, and you guys may have more examples, but off the top of my head, the only real benefit I can see to this is passing a battle shock test so that if you're falling back, you don't have to worry about desperate escape. Every other instance of battle shock is going to really be covered by Grim Determination. So it really is quite a niche benefit. Hey, that's not to say they're not benefits, but it's important to, when looking at this competitively, really not over-exaggerate what they're bringing to the table and understand that these are definitely footnotes rather than selling points. But as is the case with all command squads and officers, we don't really want to be thinking of this unit in terms of stat lines. We're not Space Marines. We want to be thinking about this unit in terms of being a force multiplier, how it can boost the rest of our army and other units in our army, and what kind of war gear and abilities is it bringing to the table. The first ability we want to look at is the leader ability. What units can the Death Corps of Krieg Command Squad join? Fortunately, this is relatively simple. You've got Death Corps of Krieg infantry squads and you've got Krieg combat engineers. Out of these two, I wouldn't even say 99% of the time. I would say 100% of the time, you are going to have them join the Death Corps of Krieg squads. The reason for this is very simple. Krieg combat engineers are generally seen as a disposable unit, and you want to keep them as cheap as possible. And so stacking a 65 point at time of recording command squad onto that unit is really going against everything you want with the Krieg combat engineers. And on top of this, the Death Corps of Krieg command squad does not have the scout ability, but Krieg combat engineers do. So if you merge those two units together, the command squad will slow down the combat engineers. So it's just not a good combination, those two. The command squad going with the Death Corps of Krieg makes a lot of sense, both in terms of making a supreme command blob, and also we're just taking a big blob of Kriegers. Now that we know what the command squad will be leading, we can now have a look at its unit composition and war gear options. What is the optimum loadout for this unit? As is the case with many guard squads, you have a veritable smorgasbord of options to choose from, but there is always one best loadout. In this case, your Lord Commissar always wants to have the plasma pistol and power fist. You want to have another guardsman who is going to have a plasma pistol and power weapon. There will be one guardsman who is going to have the plasma gun, and then you are going to have a guardsman with the regimental standard, one with the Master Vox, and one with the alchemic counter agents and servo scribes. There are two reasons why we've gone with those particular special weapons. Firstly, they are the best options. Plasma is much better than grenade launcher and flamer, and a plasma pistol is always going to be better than a bolt pistol and stuff like that. So just take all the plasma that you can, because it's just one of the better weapons that you can get in the guard for your infantry in general. The big question that might come up is, why do you take the plasma gun over the melter gun? I take the plasma gun because it goes very nicely with the plasma pistols, and I can roll all of those weapons at the same time. This makes it quicker, which saves me time in a competitive game when I'm on the clock. If I have two plasma pistols and a melter gun, I can roll the two plasma pistols, and then I have to do a separate roll to resolve what happens with the melter gun. If I have a plasma gun and two plasma pistols, if I'm in rapid fire range, I can just roll 4 dice at the same time, all plasma, all overcharged, all the way, and it just makes things much smoother and much quicker. So we talked about how the Krieg stat line stacked up against the Cadian and Cadian stat line, but how does their weapon loadout stack up? How does their best loadout stack up against the best loadout of these other two command squads? On the surface, it doesn't look good for the Krieg command squad. It actually looks like they have the worst optimal loadout. But when you scratch below the surface, you realize that actually it's pretty equals pequals. The Cadian command squad looks like it has better volume because it can take the extra plasma gun over the Krieg one, and it can also get first rank fire, second rank fire stacking with the Cadian Castellan with his sustained hits. You then have to take into account that the Krieg blob that is going to be led by the Krieg command squad is bringing 2 extra plasma pistols, and the Krieg squad might not be able to get first rank fire, second rank fire and sustained hits, but they can have grim demeanor giving them +1 to hit, and first rank fire, second rank fire from the command squad, actually meaning that they won't have as much raw volume, but they'll be more accurate with comparable volume. In essence, a full blob of Cadians led by a Cadian command squad with a Cadian Castellan can put out 14 plasma shots with sustained hits hitting on 4s. The Krieg command squad will actually put out 13 plasma shots in rapid fire range with first rank fire, second rank fire, because you've got 3 plasma guns putting out 3 shots each, and then you've got 4 plasma pistols, 2 on the squad and 2 in the command squad. And that'll be, so it's 1 less shot without sustained hits, but then those 13 shots are going to be hitting on 3s rather than 4s. Very rough math hammer here. if you're firing 14 shots, hitting on 4s, you're going to get 7 hits. Take into account, you're going to get on average 2, maybe 3 sustained hits, and you're looking at 10 hits in total. And then you go over to the Kriegers, who are firing 13 shots, hitting on 3s, and they should get 8, possibly 9 hits. So it's very, very, very close. So you do get slightly more firepower from the Cadians, but you are also paying about 30 points more for that combo overall because of the cost of the Castellan. And so I think in the broad scheme of things, if you're looking at taking a command squad in a big blob of guys as a relatively self-contained unit, then from a damage output point of view, there's not much in it. If there was one thing that I would say pips it for the Cadians and does give the Cadian command squad and the Cadian platoon overall an advantage over the Krieg one, it's not even about damage output. As we've seen, that they're pretty close. It's actually about the fact that the Cadian Castellan can use the Cadian command squad's Master Vox, but the Kriegers at time of recording don't have an equivalent character to the Cadian Castellan. Now, in the past they did. They had something called the Death Corps Marshal, but he's now gone to Legends, and so we can't really factor him in a competitive video because Legends aren't allowed at tournaments. So if we really scratch and we go deep and deep and deep about, the Cadian command squad versus the Krieg command squad, force multipliers, who's better, I think the Cadian command squad probably does pip the Krieg one, just because, not of anything the Cadian command squad's really doing, but because of the fact the Cadians have got the Castellan, and that combos with the Cadian command squad's Master Vox. So I think that really has got into the nitty gritty of Cadian command squads versus Krieg command squads, and you can see it is pretty close between them, and actually it's the things that are elsewhere in the guard that might actually swing it one way or another. Quick side note, we do want to talk about the Cadian command squad. In terms of raw loadout, I think the Cadian command squad might have an advantage just because you can give every guy a special weapon. I think the problem with the Cadian command squads is what they're leading. The Cadian jungle fighters' prevailing wisdom is you take those as small 10-man squads, which are just used as cheap scouting units or cheap units that can go in chimeras or tauruxes and then scout there. So I do think that the Krieg command squad probably outdoes the Cadian command squad in the grand scheme of things, but is slightly behind the Cadian command squad in the grand scheme of things. But let us now move on to the war gear abilities and the main datasheet abilities of the unit. The Master Vox is one of the most useful pieces of war gear in the command squad because it allows any officer that is part of the unit to issue orders up to 24 inches away rather than 6 inches. We touched upon this before with the Cadian versus Krieg command squad debate, and how this Master Vox here is actually kind of what gives the Cadians the edge. The thing is, the Kriegers could also make good use of the Master Vox, because if the Cadians have got the better front line platoon, then I think the Kriegers have got the better Supreme Command Blob. For those of you unaware what the Supreme Command Blob is, it's where you take a squad of infantry, add a command squad to it, and then add the Lord Solar into the mix as well, because every guard battle line infantry unit can actually have 2 leaders join them. This really enhances the Lord Solar's orders, because not only can he do 3 orders, but he could also do them up to 24 inches away now that he's part of the unit that has got the Master Vox in it. At time of recording, a 10-man squad of Kriegers and a 10-man squad of Cadians cost the same amount. And a command squad for the Cadians and the command squad for the Kriegers cost the same amount. The advantage that the Krieg command squad has is, firstly, it's got that 1 extra wound. Now, I said that wasn't a big deal, but it is in this context, because that 1 extra wound makes it just that little bit harder for your opponent to split the Supreme Command Blob apart, which is something good opponents will try and do. Some people will try and do it with indirect fire, although that has somewhat fallen out of fashion, but a lot of people will try it with things coming in from reserve or deep striking 6 inches away and blasting. Having that extra model in the Krieg command squad can make the difference between your Supreme Command Blob breaking apart and being able to stay together. Just to really explain how this works, if you have a 10-man squad of Kriegers and then a 6-man command squad and then the Lord Solar, the casualties that have to be removed last are the characters. But everyone who isn't a character can be removed first. You don't have to kill the guys from the Krieg infantry squad, then the command squad. So how you can game this system a little bit is you could take 9 casualties from the Krieg infantry squad, leave the medic left over, and then you could take 5 casualties from the Krieg command squad and have the Lord Commissar left over. And so the bare minimum that you need to keep the Supreme Command Blob together before all splits apart into the separate officers and stuff is 1 medic, 1 Lord Commissar, and 1 Lord Solar Leontis. Just those 3 models. And so having the extra wound in the Krieg command squad helps you keep the guys together. It's 1 more model the enemy has to kill. But also the fact that the medic that regrows people is in the Krieg squad really lets you take the piss with this, because it means you don't have to like lose the medic and have the Master Vox guy be left over and all this kind of stuff. It's really, really helpful. And that's just the first reason why the Krieg command squad is better as a Supreme Command Blob. The second reason actually comes down to this other bit of war gear down here, the Servo Scribes, which means once per battle when issuing an order, the Lord Commissar can issue 1 additional order. I'm always banging on about how you should be looking at command squads through the lens of being a force multiplier, and this is just a great way of boosting what this command squad can do. You're just getting an extra order. That is the bread and butter. That's the fundamental thing with how guard officers boost other units around them. Just getting a free extra order is fantastic. I do know some people which struggle with how to leverage this free order, but I actually do have a really good way of taking advantage of it. You don't want to think about having this extra order as like a permanent thing. So like I'm going to do it on something like an artillery team, because it's only once per game. And so you do it once, and then after that, maybe your artillery team doesn't have the orders that it needs to be effective. You want to think about this once per battle bonus order as something that's going to go on a disposable squad, something that's not going to be around the following turn. And great examples of this are Rough Riders and Death Riders, especially Rough Riders. You take a big 10-man squad of Rough Riders, and you know that when you commit that unit, it's going to go in, it's going to blast something, you know it's then going to die. That's the whole point of Rough Riders. They go in, melt or land something, and then they die. But they take something out that's pretty big before they actually go and meet the Emperor. Now, if you have a dedicated officer for that, let's say you take like Grand Strategist or like Cadian Castellan, something like that, once those Rough Riders have gone in, and then they die, his order kind of becomes superfluous, and you've kind of paid for an extra order that you're not getting that much out of. But if you take a Krieg command squad, you're not paying for the extra order, it's just a freebie, and once it's used and then the Rough Riders have inevitably died, everything's fine. The order economy is still going strong and being efficient. At the end of the day, however you slice it, if you take a Krieg command squad, a 10-man squad of Kriegers, and the Lord Solar, it will cost you the same points as doing the exact same thing with Cadians and Catachans, but you're going to be slightly more durable, and you're going to have an extra order once per game. So Krieg Supreme Command Blobs are actually the best way of running that combo. We do have 2 other pieces of war gear here. The first one is the Alchemic Counter Agents. This is really not worth worrying about or even considering. It is very niche and is very unlikely to do anything in terms of competitive play. The one that is a big deal is the Regimental Standard. Unlike with Cadians, you don't have to pick between this and a special weapon. You get the standard and you still get your extra plasma pistol and power weapon guy, which is good. And the Regimental Standard is nice because it basically means that you always are going to get some objective control on the unit that is being led by the command squad. How objective control works and battle shot works is you have your OC. When you are battle shocked, your OC is reduced to 0. You then apply multipliers, and then you apply adding and subtracting of objective control. So what this means with the Regimental Standard is my unit becomes battle shocked, it goes down to OC 0, I've got no multipliers, so 0 times 0 is 0. And then I have +1 because of the regimental standard, so it becomes 0 times 0 is 0, +1 equals I have 1 OC overall. So it means you've always got some kind of objective control, which can be very handy for when trying to do primary game. And on top of this, if you are actually just perfectly okay, you're not battle shocked, then your standard guardsman will go up to objective control 3, OC2, +1 for the flag when this is leading a big platoon, right? And if you put duty and honor on top of that, you can actually get your basic guardsman being led by a command squad with a flag up to objective control 4 per person, which is wild. And honestly, that is probably overkill, but when combining this with the fact that Kriegers in a big blob can regrow D3 +1 guys, I have seen it where someone has the flag, they regrow, they get like 2 or 3 Kriegers onto an objective they weren't already on, and then they flip it, because all of this happens in your command phase, they flip it and you get more primary points. So do not underestimate the regimental standard and how it combos with Guardsman's native very high objective control, and how this can become a force multiplier when looking at Krieg medipacks in Death Corps of Krieg infantry squads. That covers our war game abilities. Now let's get into the main datasheet abilities, which is leader, already covered that. Faction, voice of command, you can do 1 order from the command squad, but a bonus 1 thanks to service scribes. And then we get to the biggie, grim determination. While this unit contains an officer, you can target this unit with stratagems even while it is battle shocked, and orders issued to this unit do not cease to affect this unit if it becomes battle shocked. Between grim determination, the Lord Commissar's extra leadership, and the regimental standards insulation of objective control, a platoon of guardsmen led by Krieg Command Squad really just does not need to worry about battle shock in any way, shape or form. You're still going to have objective control, you're still going to have orders, you're still going to have stratagems issued on you, you're still going to have a good chance of passing that battle shock anyway and avoiding things like a desperate breakout. You're just sorted. The big thing with the Krieg Command Squad is, even more so than just normal, it basically makes battle shock an irrelevant factor. I genuinely have no issues with this ability whatsoever. It's quite obviously very good. It protects guard from losing our army rule, which is orders and battle shock and all that kind of stuff. So it's generally very good. If there was one fly in the ointment, I would say that it's related to battle shock, which generally is seen as a bit of a bad thing. Any sort of battle shock orientated ability is relatively low impact. And the other thing though is that if you have this on a big frontline blob, there's a chance that the whole blob just gets wiped out. 40k is so damn lethal all the time. I really don't think it's that hard for your opponent to just go, oh yeah, I'll just sweep aside 26 guardsmen. It depends on who you're facing and all that kind of stuff, but there's going to be games where I think Grim Determination is really, really helpful and absolutely lets you get some extra primary or lets you do some orders and do a bit of extra damage output you weren't expecting. I think there's going to be games when it's an absolute clutch lifesaver, and then I think there's going to be games where it just doesn't come up because it never gets the opportunity to, because everybody's dead. And all right, I think that just about covers everything. So what do we think of the Krieg Command Squad overall? Well, I'm going to give it a single yet very solid thumbs up. I do not think the Krieg Command Squad is an auto-include unit. In fact, I think many Guard players will gravitate towards that Cadian Command Squad, Castellan or Ursula Creed combo that we mentioned. But if you're someone that runs a supreme command blob in your Guard army, there is no reason why you shouldn't be doing this with the Krieg Command Squad and the Kriegers. So it basically comes down to, are you running a Supreme Command blob? If so, this will be an auto-include. If not, you'll probably end up with better frontline command squads like the Cadians. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What do you think of the Krieg Command Squad? Do you prefer it over a Cadian Command Squad for frontline work? And if so, why? Or do you think it is better in that Supreme Command Blob situation? If you enjoyed today's video, then don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. And if you want to see more competitive unit reviews, then subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Redfield, 32, Jurgens, Miasma, Try Again, Bragg, RJ, Scorpion, Bonbon Vert, Lord Pryor, Nicholas Walsh, John Stubbs, Guardian, Varney, Sword, Fish Trombone, Picklock the Forged. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.